cabin. The gravel road wound deeper in the forest, each curve pulling Daniel Gray farther from the cell service, gas stations, and the thin comfort of streetlights. His father's cabin, now his cabin, was waiting somewhere up ahead, near a lake so dark the locals called it Blackwater. The will had been a surprise. Daniel hadn't spoken to his father in years, not since the night in 1999 when the man had packed a single suitcase, left their house in Columbus, and never returned. Daniel's mother never explained, and his father never wrote. Now, 15 years later, Daniel was the sole inheritor of a cabin he didn't even know existed. He told himself he was only here to sell it. But as the pines closed in overhead and the lake's surface flashed black between the trees, something inside him whispered otherwise. When the cabin appeared, it was exactly as he'd imagined, a squat shape of weathered wood and green moss, its roofline sagging slightly in the middle. The porch boards were soft under his boots. The air smelled of wet leaves and something metallic, faint but sharp. Inside, dust lay thick over every surface. A pot still sat on the stove, filled with the ghost of water long evaporated. On the mantel was a single photograph. Daniel, age 5, standing beside a man with the same sharp cheekbones and restless eyes. He turned the picture face down. By dusk, fog was rolling in from the lake. Daniel made a fire in the stone hearth. Its crackle loud in the stillness. Around 11:47, he woke to a sound, not the forest's natural chirp, but something. A knock. 3 slow taps against the cabin's front door. He froze in bed, heart pounding. Another knock. 3 beats, each spaced like a measured breath. He didn't move. The fire in the hearth had burned down to embers, the room dimly lit. When he finally rose and crept to the door, nothing waited outside, only fog so thick it swallowed the porch steps. He went back to bed, telling himself it was just a branch, the wind, the wood settling. But at 3:12 a.m., the knocking returned, this time from beneath the floorboards. The lake. The next morning, Daniel walked down the slope to Blackwater Lake. It was larger than he'd expected, surface as smooth and still as polished stone. The water was almost perfectly black, reflecting only the white of the overcast sky. Near the shore, a wooden dock extended maybe 20 feet before ending, half collapsed into the water. A man was standing there. He was tall, with a thick beard and a battered brown jacket. He raised a hand in greeting as Daniel approached. "You must be Grace's boy," the man said. "Name's Fenton. I keep an eye on the place." Daniel hesitated. "You knew my father?" Fenton's eyes flicked towards the lake. "Knew him well enough. He liked to fish here, even in winter." "Why'd he leave?" Daniel asked. Fenton didn't answer right away. He picked up a flat stone and flicked it towards the water. It skipped twice before vanishing into the black. "Something's in this lake," he said quietly. "Are older than the trees around it. Best to leave them where they are." That evening, Daniel explored the cabin more thoroughly. Behind the pantry's shelves, he found a narrow door that led to a set of wooden stairs. The air down there was damp and cold. The basement was small, its stone walls slick with moisture. A single light bulb hung from a wire, swaying slightly even through the air was still. In the far corner was a trapdoor. Its iron handle was rusted, but when Daniel touched it, it felt strangely warm. He didn't open it. On the third day, Daniel returned to the mantel and turned the photograph upright. This time, he noticed something he hadn't before. Behind his father and himself, in the deep shadow behind trees, there was a faint shape. It looked like a person, tall, thin, head slightly bowed, but the face was blurred, as though it had been moving when the photo was taken. He didn't remember anyone else being there that day. That night, Daniel dreamed of the lake. He stood on the dock, the water as still as glass. Then bubbles began to rise from the center, growing faster, larger, until a pale handle broke the surface. Another followed, then a head, eyes wide, mouth open in a soundless scream. Water poured from its lips as it clawed toward the dock. He woke up gasping, the smell of lake water in his nose. His feet were wet. In a dresser drawer, Daniel found an old leather-bound notebook. The handwriting was his father's. August 12, 2003. It called to me again last night, said it could bring her back, said all I had to do was feed it. October 6, 2004. First was the deer, then the dog, but it's hungry in ways I don't understand. March 21st, 2006. I thought I could stop. I thought it would let me go, but the knocking is louder now. It wants more. Always more. The last entry was dated 5 months before his father's death. It knows about my son. The knocking returned the next night. Not at the door, not under the floor, but from the trap door in the basement. Daniel stood over it, the flashlight beam trembling in his hand. The knock comes in sets of 3, spaced like slow heartbeats. Then a voice. "Daniel." It was his mother's voice. She had drowned in a boating accident when he was 7. "Daniel, I'm so cold. Help me." His chest tightened. "You're not her," he said. The voice softly laughed. Neither was he, by the end. On the 5th night, Daniel opened the trap door. A ladder descended into darkness. The air smelled of brine and raw. At the bottom, his boots splashed into cold water. The walls here were no longer stone, but slick. Black rock, pulsing faintly as though alive. The passage sloped downward until it opened into a cave-in whose ceiling tripled with like jagged teeth. In the center was a pool, perfectly round, its surface darker than the rest of the cave. Something moved beneath it. It rose slowly, like a corpse leaving its grave. Its shape shifted constantly, At first a woman, then something with too many limbs, then only a mouth lined with teeth like broken shells. You carry his blood, it said, voice like water over stones. His death is yours. Daniel backed towards the ladder. I didn't make any deal. The thing grinned widened. Then make one, now. The water surged, and for a moment he saw faces beneath the surface. Dozens of them, mouths open in silent pleas. One was his father's. It promised him anything: wealth, health, the return of the dead. All it wanted was to be fed, just enough to keep the lake still. He nearly said yes, nearly, but something in his father's final journey stopped him. It knows about my son. Daniel ran. He climbed the ladder, 2 rungs at a time, slammed the trapdoor shut, and shoved the pantry shelves back into place. The knocking began instantly, louder now. The next day, the lake had risen. It lapped higher on the shore, swallowing the bases of the pines. The dock was almost gone. By nightfall, water began sleeping up through the cabin's floorboards. It carried it with a stick of rock and the faint sound of whispers. Daniel fled into the trees, but the fog was thick, and the sound of the water followed him, always just behind. 3 days later, Fenton found the cabin empty. The basement was flooded to the top step. The photograph on the mantel was gone. At the edge of the lake, the water was calm again. In its black mirror, 2 figures stood by his side. A man with sharp cheekbones and a restless glaze, and a younger man with the same eyes. The cabin at Blackwater is for sale again. The listing promises seclusion, waterfront views, and excellent fishing. And beneath the lake, something waits, knocking softly, patient as the tide